Let's see what happens. We are live. Hey y'all, hey.
How's everybody today?
Yes, so we are here with our first, well, it's not our first. If you want to see our first, we did that one a while back. It'll be on the playlist. And this is basically the Darrell and Monifa show. We keep renaming it, so
Well, I mean, it'll probably get another name again. I'm preferential to some of the names that we've acquired over the years. And it just haven't been placed in a format of inspiration that I know will stick. So right now, we're gonna go with the Darrell and Monifa show. So welcome everybody. We do enjoy having you, and we believe this is the start of something that we want to get more and more involved in and have an opportunity to, you know, give you guys an insight into how we think and how we process things. And we think it'll be fun.
mostly fun. But we did want to help as well. So we are have been doing things with people, helping them on a personal level and connecting to themselves and connecting to others for a long time
And I've been, yeah,
now. Pretty much all our lives now, all
well,
our professional lives.
for me, it spans. I mean, I started coaching at 19 years old, youth coach for a long time, and that was so rewarding at a time in my life when I was a dad. I was raising kids. I was also working in a special needs school um, with kids who had multiple needs. It was state run and it was a very large school. So I've been around people in my entire life in terms of who I am and what I could do to help impact their lives and educate and things like that. So it's been a part of my life. Yeah, my entire life.
Entire life. And now he does the team training and works with a lot of mid young people.
Yeah,
like, you know,
I have some young people who are growing in themselves, and the one thing that I've learned over the years, I would say, is that you can't really help a person with what you know. You really help people by turning them back into themselves, because only within yourself can you truly find the answer that you're looking for. So our goal has never been to give someone advice. The only advice I've ever given anyone is, well, what do you think about it yourself? Go inside, find those things. I just have the ability to see them in a place where if they applied those things, that I have the ability to give them a glimpse as to what that can look like for them and feel like in the future. And a lot of people have taken advantage of that and done some amazing things, post our encounter.
yeah, gone on to do great things. And so we hope maybe in the future we can invite him on the show. That would be a thing.
Yeah, that would be a great thing. And they would
Um,
be more than happy to come on and have these conversations about, what it is that Monifa and I, and since we've been together, those same people have, gotten advice from both of us, or not even advice, gotten guidance in a way of experiential training of life. Like life teaches you what you need to know if you're listening and really taken to heed, but it all comes from within. Nothing comes from outside of you. Your outside is a reflection of what's really going on inside, and you have to recognize that. Sooner the better, actually.
yeah, and we both have different approaches, but so I think sometimes what I do sounds like advice, but it's mostly like what is given me to share with people, and also what I'm really doing is helping them in the process of getting to know themselves. And a lot of people have just forgotten how or just need some direction when things are more challenging and more confusing. And during big transitions. It gets a little more challenging, a little bit more confusing. So it's always nice to have some support, but never to say that what you know about yourself is always more than what somebody knows about you. So we always hope for that light to turn on so that you can navigate on your own.
That's why you can't give advice, man, because no one ever gives you the real story. Everyone's always going to hold something back when they're trying to explain something, and it's always going to be jaded in a light that puts them as either the victim or the hero of a situation. But so that's why you don't give advice, because you don't truly know the story. You don't know in what vein anything is happening in a person's life, and what their perception of it is at that moment.
Difference between like advice, like situational advice, and like process understanding.
Yeah, you give people processes to go with them and figure it out.
Yeah. So we asked some friends to send us some questions about what they'd be curious about to know about Darrell and I. And we've been married for 16 years.
Yeah.
Going on 17.
16 and
it's basically 17.
Yeah, we're a month away from 17.
Yeah. So basically 17 years. And I thought, well, they know us, and they know most of our friends have asked us something about our relationship at one point or another.
They think it's so fabulous.
It's not, but that's why we're here. Like
that's actually how we made it.
Yeah, exactly. by knowing it's not always fabulous,
right,
and continuing to work on it. So. The first question is mostly for me. I had a friend ask, what does this show have to do with sound healing and using your voice to be empowered? And I thought it was a great question, because that's what my life is about. That's what my channel is about. So I'm glad this came up. You want to tell?
Yeah, I think it's funny because when I met Monifa, the last thing you would ever think from her is hearing her voice and her opinion if she wasn't on stage singing. Other than that, all her attention went to a book. So, and now she's 15 years, 16 years later, now she's, empowering people to use their voice to heal themselves. And you just don't, if you saw the process of what she took to get here, you would understand, because I'm part of her process. And for me, I'm really like an open book person. Like, what you see is really kind of what you get in terms of, I'm straight, no chaser. There ain't no Coca-Cola. It's just straight shot, because I need a person, especially a person that I'm going to be with, to not BS, especially themselves, about situations. And Monifa being so quiet and so reserved when I met her, that the one thing that I knew is that couldn't last if she was like some person who couldn't endure things. It's important that you understand that every part of your life is going to be about this he that endureth type thing, to get biblical real quick. But you do have to endure things, and you have to be tough-minded to do stuff. Now, she had some evidence of tough-mindedness. You don't go from Florida to Boston with $300, and then 2 years later, you have a master's degree. You don't do that by yourself. That's like incredible. That story she'll tell you one day. But I had to find out for myself, and for what I offered in a relationship is just, I need a person to be like really 6 o'clock, as they say, straight up and down, no BS, and being afraid to confront me because I seem intimidating is not a good excuse. So
I was not intimidated by Darrell. Okay. There is a difference between intimidation and
I didn't say you were intimidated.
Well,
you were timid.
I was quiet, and people always replace quiet with whatever is in their perception, right? And so for me, actually, what it was that I was still working on all the stuff that I help people with, which was I had a hard time processing what I was feeling, what I wanted to say, what needed to be said, how to say things in a way that that wouldn't damage the relationship, but would take us further, you know? And so I didn't even know I wanted all those things at the time because, you know, younger and all those things. But that was what my soul wanted, right? And so it was in conflict with the idea, just not having the words to express myself. And so for me, that process was getting connected to myself so that I could access what I really wanted to say. And he interpreted it a lot of times as me trying to be evasive or not feeling like I could tell the whole truth. And that just further frustrated me because it was like, now I have to figure out how to talk about why I can't talk, right? So
Oh, it was a process.
it was a process.
So now we're here where she can speak as eloquently now as she can speak and have those processes come faster because she healed herself with her voice. And that and that has carried into our relationship in terms of for a guy, you know, a lot of guys get in trouble in a relationship because of the way they say things. And people will always say, well, it's not what you said, it's the way you said it. And so I'm a victim of the way I say things. And so sometimes it gets lost in translation what is really, but that when a guy can speak in a way that you're feeling him as he speaks, you know, that's as real to a person as you're going to get. Now, even if the words are supposed to be soothing, but they're cutting, you know, that's him trying to get to the basis of his reality, you know, and that's where that emotional talk is coming from. So I would say to people, you know, when you have a person who is more of the A type personalities, you really have to understand they really care, and that's why you get that emotion. It's a deep caring that you've tapped into. Now, it can be misconstrued.
I was like, this is exactly why we put the questions in the order we did, because that leads us straight into our next question. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that up for you, but it was a little long, so I had to truncate some things. So let me read it out for you guys, the full question. So the full question is how to allow yourself to become an embodiment of both feminine and masculine from within, assuming Darrell has to do the same as well for being the counterpart, giving some examples of what happens when the energies within are out of balance. How does it play out in your dynamic? So this is kind of a lot. This is going to be like a 4 or 5 point answer probably. But it does start with this. Not only is Darrell an A-type, but I was an A-type, but didn't realize it. He actually is the one who kind of informed me that I was also an A-type personality. I was like, no way, I'm not one of you people.
Oh, you were.
And so I feel like this question is really pertinent because it is like there's a thing with two leaders in a room, right? And two people who are very confident within their own identities. We, met a little later in life, and we didn't necessarily felt we needed to be in a relationship. So to choose to be in one was a compromise within and of itself, to tell you the truth, for both of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because at the time it was, I moved away from my comfort zone to start what I was perceiving as my new life, where now I'm not so much people centered. Remember, I've been coaching Pop Warner in high school football for 9 years. Moved to Boston and had a good time in Boston. But it's cold up there, man. Like the winter will run you out. And coming from New Jersey at 35 years old, I was just kind of wintered out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm done with winter. So I moved to Carolina to really restart and and start this new path that I felt was for myself. And so it was important for me at that time to, and I come to understand what having another person entangled in you felt like. And so I had untangled myself. I had gone through this process of sort of being celibate to figure out who I was without a woman. And I was having some fun. It was awesome, you know. And wherever you go, I tapped into some other young people who, it's crazy. Wherever you go, this life, it does follow you, man. And so I tapped into some other young people and growth opportunities. The things I was doing were just amazing. It felt like freedom. You know, it was really a time in my life where I felt like I was living for me, and I was truly enjoying it.
Same thing for me. So, like, I was finishing up grad school and I had come down to North Carolina to see what was going on. If you want the full story with his
Lesson
interjections,
one.
then watch the other video, okay? Because that's the whole thing. But like,
Yeah, watch that one.
we met when I came down to check out North Carolina because I knew I wanted to move to a smaller area to establish my opera career. But I also knew that I wasn't interested in dating because I thought it would get in the way.
All your teachers told you.
Goals. I wasn't caring what my teachers told
But
me.
what did they tell you?
But yeah, I mean, the teachers in the industry, not just the teachers, but the industry itself, you would see people get married and stop pursuing their career.
Correct.
And so when I met him, you know, I was like, you know, that's not how this is going to go. If that's what you're expecting, my career comes first, right?
And
which is another thing that I
made it ideal because my mom was a singer.
Yeah.
And my dad rejected that. He didn't like it. He didn't like his woman on stage in front of other men. And my mom is a true talent. She truly has a gift of voice. And so when I met her, I felt like I had the opportunity to support someone in the arts, you know, very familiar with the life of a singer and an artist. You know, I was more than willing to be second to the music because if you were with a true artist, you truly are second to the art. And I didn't have a problem with that, you know.
Yeah, which made all the difference because I thought that I was never going to get married because I didn't think I would find a man who was strong enough for me that would accept that, you know. And this dude just got in my way. So that's how we got together. But it has been a journey as far as this question, like, what does it look like to kind of go through this evolution, this part of our human evolution, whether we recognize what's going on or not. What we are trying to do is find that balance within ourselves and our own energies and how we create in the world of nurturing ourselves and committing to action, which is kind of the breakdown of definitions between feminine and masculine energetic principles. But you know, there's a couple things that we had to talk about in order to get to the answer of this question. And one of those things is that I found that we often are talking about energetic principles as personalities, as identities. And we're assigning that personality of a dominant feminine, dominant masculine, that personality to actions, like what people are doing in any given moment. And I find it just does not translate because identity is a wholly different thing from how are we being, how are we acting, how are we talking to each other,
Right.
how are we finding the connections, how are we missing connections? Like those questions come up outside of really
masculine and feminine, anything. So I think the best analogy we came up with was like, you know, if a baby's crying and need nurturing, does a man not have the ability to nurture?
Mm.
And so, you know, coming from a nurturing male family, the men in my family that I grew up watching, I mean, were nurturers. They worked, they built their businesses, they owned their homes, but you know, we weren't, you know, like not being nurtured.
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't understand when they say men don't nurture. Everyone did that
Well,
well.
and that's one of the things that endeared us, because in our family, it was the complete opposite. Not only was my father not fully present, but the female dynamic was very masculine, or is very masculine in my family, because there was a lack of support from that kind of side. So we were very action oriented, and we were taught that way. That wording actually came from my mother, not my teachers. My career comes first, right? Finish your school first before you worry about a man. Make sure you can take care of yourself before you worry about a man. Like these are things that were very, I don't know, maybe cutting edge at the time, because everybody I was meeting in college was like looking for a husband, which I was like, but we're here for
education. Yeah, and to be honest, to be fair, I think most families of color raise their daughters similarly. I didn't raise my daughters to depend on anyone for the substance of life, man. Like, be a whole self so that when you do meet a person, you know, you're not wholly dependent on substance of life. And that to me was the only thing. If you're raising daughters, you're not raising them to be someone's sacrificial, arm ornament.
My mom wouldn't
until
even
they
teach
get
me how
tired
to
of
cook.
Until they get tired of you being an arm ornament. So I don't know.
My mom was like, well, if you want to learn how to cook, then you teach yourself. She said, I didn't raise you to be in a kitchen.
Yeah. But I came from a family where the men cooked. Where the men,
we would have starved.
And they weren't demasculated men. These are alpha males alpha males who just like eating good food.
Yeah. Like, let me do this. This is how Darrell told me. Like, let me do this correctly.
Well, I come from a team mentality in life. I don't believe in one person taking the weight. You know what I mean? In terms of, you have your strengths and you have your weaknesses. Yeah. So I don't like a dirty kitchen. So I'm not going to depend on her to clean up something that makes me feel good. So I'll clean a kitchen. I like my clothes clean. So if
Darrell's much more concerned about daily tasks than I am. I'm like, oh, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, but I like walking into a clean house. That's just.
But yeah, like, and so how balance happened in our relationship was really a matter of just the natural development. And it was part of what we discovered about ourselves because we were with each other. And then realizing, instead of, I find that a lot of times arguments are about deciding it's the other person's fault for what we're feeling and what's happening.
Right? We did have a couple of rules, though. And I remember distinctly that, and there's still rules that we use to this day. We had, rule number 1 is that we're not going to argue about money. We're not going to argue about money. If there's a problem with money, you'll make more. So there's no need for a money argument when you can make more. Yeah. So our one rule was not going to argue about money. Rule number 2, which was more importantly, we're never going to call each other names. We are never going to call each other outside our names. So that, if you live by those 2 rules.
There's one more.
What was the third one?
The third one was essentially that it was basically respect, right? Like, it was very similar to not calling out somebody's name, but but basically that we're going to respect each other. And actually, that was basically that one. Yeah. But the third one was that we were going to act the way we wanted to our marriage to look in the future. I don't know if you remember that, where we were like, we were starting to argue in circles for a while. And I was like, is this how you want the rest of our marriage to be? And if not, then
yeah, but that wasn't part of the first 2 rules that when we got married. That was added a little later.
Well, it's
We
not
only
part
had
of
those.
your first 2 roles.
Yeah, I got 2.
And I added it. So that is why there's 3. So
And
yeah.
that's the reason why there really is no play out in a dynamic. Like, I'm not walking around, like, king, man, alpha, do as I say, woman. I wouldn't do that anyway.
Yeah, well, unless
So,
he's playing, he does. He
I
does like to
play,
like that.
I'm King Kong too. So.
But I find that yeah, that is part of it, and part of it was just our natural sensitivities. Darrell's a Pisces. I'm a Cancer twice, and he's a Cancer moon. I'm a Cancer moon, and then
Which basically means when we get into the don't give a shit mode, we don't give a shit.
we literally don't.
Yeah, but it's not don't give a shit personally. It's I'll do my thing, you do your thing, and like we'll go a whole day without speaking. She's doing her thing.
We'll do that anyways. We're both very
Yeah, I need my time.
oriented.
I need my time
at home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I need my time.
Yeah, and so part of it was just our natural ability to pick up on each other's feelings. So if he was in like my time mode, I'm not gonna go bother him, right? And that I feel like a lot of times
she doesn't need that attention, that constant reassuring that. Is he talking to another girl? Does he love me? What is he doing? Oh wait, I'm not in his attention. Wait, let me go get his attention. I'm more like that than she is because she can zone out of life. Like
number 1 skill.
Life is no longer in her periphery, like for days.
When I say I could go be by myself for months, like that's a literal thing.
It's true. And I do enjoy my time, but I get my time when, I'm going on appointments 2 hours away. I love the drive. I love being within myself on those drives and listening to music or a book or something that.
And I would have never married a man that I had to go check on. If I have to check on you, then we don't need to be together. I got time to check on people.
And I have not to be checked on.
That's not. I'm like, where are you at?
What? Where am I?
What do you need?
Where you at?
What do you need?
Because I don't. I mean, if you're that person, that has because it's coming from somewhere. I think people do that because that's coming from somewhere. There's just zero evidence of you needing to check on me. That when it becomes, and especially from people who know each other so well.
In the beginning, you do have to obviously have some awareness.
I don't believe that.
I think you do. I think because there's different personalities, and there's some people who haven't learned how to control their sexuality. And so you need to know who you're dealing with.
Well, that too.
But like I didn't doubt Darrell could control his sexuality because I met him when he was coming off a celibacy thing, So I was like, he's already dealt with that as a man. I don't have to worry about whether he knows how to say no or how or to be led around by his penis. Like that was just the tendency for most men. They don't know how to say no to their penis, right? So that is a real concern for somebody who hasn't lived that process. But I think if you've committed and you've agreed to be monogamous, then you do your best to trust that that's what your partner's doing, and you be with somebody that you can trust. Like that's what I hope for people, is that you find somebody you can trust.
Or you have a conversation.
And if you can't trust, and I mean,
you have to have the conversations. You cannot. Yeah, you cannot not have the conversations. And
if you have we've asked each other questions, especially in the beginning. Yeah,
you gotta know.
I would get lost. I would stop answering. I don't answer my phone, and Darrell just be like
600 800 miles all the way in Boston, not answering calls.
But people,
because I came out of a relationship, where I was cheated on.
And, so in the beginning, there was
not a good feeling, And there is I'm not going to say that you trust a person immediately, but you do have to be trusting first.
You have to decide to
You
trust.
trust, and people say, "Oh, you got to earn trust." Not in a relationship. You have to give it first. You have to give it first.
Which brings us to our next question. Can we answer this one completely?
Yep.
Yeah.
There ain't no out of balance. You either you who you are. There is no out of balance. So
yeah, that's the thing. There's nothing wrong, right? Like there's nothing to fix about yourself. It's just the evolution of what happens as human beings, as we live our process, as we mature. And so it's really just a matter of seeing what wants to happen now.
well, like we were saying, your relationship, the moment you create a relationship, you're creating another person. There's another entity that is now who you are as a couple. So you're an individual, she's an individual, but now you coming together create this new entity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that if you, again, we were like pretty conscious, not that we knew a lot about energy, but again, we're very aware of of emotions. We were very aware of feelings in the room. Like we knew how to read things. And so we were very clear that the relationship was its own entity.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of people don't realize that. They think, again, that it's always the other person, or it's always outside circumstances. It's always something else.
Syndrome.
But the relationship itself has energy. It has a dynamic. And so when I mentioned that, because I was asking that my friends, like, what do you want to know about a relationship dynamic? They're like, well, what is a relationship dynamic to you? And like, how do you describe that dynamic? And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that was a question, because we do it so naturally. That's something that we're just really both adept at, as reading energy, reading people, reading the room. And so as soon as we realized that our energy was being invested in each other, Darrell stopped the train and said, like, are we, I need to know that this is really what you want to do, that this is serious, that we're moving forward, that we're together. Like, he wanted like a commitment. And that was within the first week. And I'm like, I don't even know.
The first week? What are you talking about?
It was too. It was like we started talking like on Sunday, and it was like Thursday. It was within a week.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go by your timeline. Your time.
It was within a week.
Your
and I was freaking out.
Mind management.
It was like 3 days.
All right.
If you have a number, then throw it out. Then throw it out. You got a number when you have that conversation? You don't have a number. You don't have a number because I'm right. That's what happens most of the time. But yeah, no, but it doesn't matter, because what you're doing was you're saying, listen, there's something happening here. If I'm going to continue to put my energy into this entity, then I want to be clear that there is an entity, that we're agreed on this entity, and that we're in this together on this entity, right? So that's the dynamic. The dynamic is what you are together. There's a you, there's a them, and then there's you together,
which is the new entity.
Yeah, and that's the dynamic. So, and everybody has a different one, because with a different person would have a different dynamic, right? And so that's what I feel like the dynamic part is. It's like, because it's developed by the confluence of both of our energies, right? And then the experiences we create together. And then we were just talking yesterday about this, and Darrell's like, yeah, we got like a teenage baby. We got a teenager.
16. That dude's 16.
Walking around like, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. You said guy. I kind of feel like it's a guy.
I think it's a boy.
Yeah.
It's a boy. It's a boy. Yeah. It's a boy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, because it does. Like, it's definitely.
Yeah, we
because it
haven't
kind
named
of
them
runs
yet, though.
things sometimes too. Because you're just like, oh, I guess the
Yeah,
relationship is
it
taking over.
really, because you have to do things with the other person. Like right now, we're contemplating moving, where we're going to go. If we're leaving the state, are we shifting? Are we going to shift everything to being here and doing this and pouring some real energy into it? So we're at a crossroads, and so we don't look at it as I'm might be changing or doing something different next year, or she might be. It's like this kid is now deciding on what's next for him. So at
Right.
almost 17 years old, he's making a decision because it does impact both of us, and that entity makes the decision to say, okay, this direction and with the information we have about it really looks promising, or we can relocate in where we are and really focus on what we're doing and making it more, magnifying that more. And because there is some great opportunity we have here. And do we want to say, okay, it's not moving at the speed of our teenage us? And so do we want to investigate other things? But we found in these situations, man, that you don't have to make the decision. It sort of lays itself out for you.
Lays itself out by how are you prioritizing, and what really clarified, at least for me. I mean, we've been married for a long time now, so obviously we're committed. But what I think, again, another thing a lot of people don't think about is that you don't have to be together, right? Like there's you can
Yeah, you can
decide
make a choice.
not to be together, and if you think you have to be together, now you feel trapped. Now you feel like if I'm not together, if I do this and I break us, then we now are living broken. Like you feel like it's like forever.
Right.
And what I think Darrell and I have always kind of understood as well is that we have to continue to commit. We have to
To
continue
the kid.
yeah.
That's the kid. The kid is the relationship. So, and it's almost like
And I don't buy into that whole thing where people talk about like starting over and like, have you,
I
you
don't
know,
understand. What do you mean?
well, you know how some people like get remarried after separation, or um, they, I mean,
Remarried
that's the
to
differences.
themselves? Remarried
No. Like
or get
when,
into a different marriage?
no, they don't. Well, some I guess do, but no. But I'm talking not really the separation. Nix that. I mean, people that are saying that a lot of times they do. Okay, so some relationships they'll review their relationship every year and they'll decide if they'll want to stay together. Like they make it a very conscious activity,
That
and
sounds like a dude thing.
and I'm like, I get it and I understand that, but the reality is that there's a teenager. Like you can't say, oh yeah, bye teenager. Like if you decide that you're no longer raising the teenager, right?
Right.
There's still a whole thing that has to be untangled, has to be you know, I don't
No,
know.
it's difficult.
What would you do with it? I don't know. What would you do?
I mean, that's why.
That's why divorce is hard. It's because y'all think y'all are just breaking up with
Yeah,
each other.
you're not.
But there's a whole thing. There's like how you do things together. How you get things done is part of your relationship.
Yep.
Um,
What you don't do. So I guess a lot of people realize what they're not doing in life because they have a partner. So you think about the things that you're not doing in your relationship. Are you the one paying the bills? Are you the one checking the accounts? Are you the one processing invoices? Are you the one doing that? You know what I mean? So are you the one washing the clothes? Are you the one making sure, the tires are inflated? The gas is in the car? The puppy clean? And the things that you don't do in the relationship, when you don't have the relationship, now you realize, damn, I got to do all of this. And it's not a reason to stay together, and it's not a reason to not stay together, but
right.
it's just about
But it's just the reality.
taking the reality. And instead of having a conversation that might be hard for one person to hear, it might be hard for one person to hear something about who they are in the relationship and how that dynamic is impacting the
The
kid,
kid.
which is the relationship. And so, you know, um,
Yeah, no, it is hard because every time you have to go and look at yourself again, and be like, oh, okay. And I mean, I've kind of always known that I wasn't the best wife, but there's times when Daryl will say something to me, especially lately, now that I'm just have way more clarity in general. And I'm just like, holy cow, like this whole time,
exactly.
like I didn't even recognize this need in the kid. I didn't even know
Hmm.
the kid needed new Nikes every season. Like I didn't know that.
Hmm.
Like and
New
so
clothes, you got to have new. Maybe that is our yearly review of our marriage, is understanding where the kid is and what the kid needs. And so we apply it.
but that's what I realized when I went to Spain this year. As I realized um, that I was very committed to this kid, right? Like I'm very committed to it, the kid, and the kid actually probably officially for me for the first time became the priority for me this year. You know,
Thank you
and
for getting off my back.
because it was like because I finally I don't know what it was exactly because it's also I think it's also because I have accepted more about myself and so now I can accept like my faults and so I just realized like how much that those faults impacted the relationship
Okay.
and the kid, yeah. And then and knowing that I don't want to, how I say this, knowing that I didn't want to like reverse all that progress by making myself feel shame and guilt about it, I just decided that I would like double up
Invest more.
the investment.
You
Yeah.
pour. See, that's the beauty of it, is that you pour more of you into the kid, and then you see the results. Like the more you, if you, even with a real kid, a real child, if you wanted your child to be smarter in school, you spend more time with them on their homework, on things that they're doing, and you're going to see the results. You know what I mean? There's no parent who doesn't pour into their child that doesn't see results. It's just the nature of the pouring. And so, you know, she might not have realized it, but I've always realized that the more you pour into the relationship, the more results you're going to see. And I don't look at things as they are. I see things as the way I want them to be, you know. And so, meaning that I'm willing to do the work first to see what I need to see.
Yeah.
And that's when my relationships have gone wrong, is when I don't see the reciprocation. I don't see this person pouring into the child the way I pour into the child. And that's what you want. And it's not
Yeah.
about,
And then he brings it up. So that maybe is the other thing. I think one of the most important things to talk about the relationship dynamic is that we talk to each
oh
other
yeah, we
when
got self check.
like if we are mad, we tell each
Oh,
other
you're
we're
gonna hear
mad.
it.
If we're losing it, we yell. I don't know, maybe there's relationship people who don't recommend yelling, but I feel like there's so
But
much
we yell with the
emotion.
two rules. We don't call each other names,
Yeah.
and we ain't arguing about money.
Right. And the bottom line is respect. So if we feel like
Or
we can
yelling is
no
not
longer
respectful.
respect, I mean, not always. It does escalate. Like, how do you, like, that's one of the questions that we probably ask.
That's what I'm
We'll talk
saying.
about our
I've been
arguing a little bit
disrespected
later.
so much. Respect couldn't have possibly been part of the two pillars.
No, it was because I think in the beginning, number one, he
Very
has a
emotional,
way
fly
of,
off the
of
handle.
igniting my emotions. We're both emotional. He's a Pisces.
I'm a very emotional person. That's why yours have to be ignited.
Which and then he would feel like the way to get me to be truthful was to get me to be emotional, right? And
Ain't no
so
filters. I don't like filters.
yeah, so and then I would just lose it. And so there was times when I had just lost it, especially early in our marriage, the first couple of years, especially.
Lose it
And
silly.
I don't even know what I said, much less like, was I respectful? Like
Oh, never respectful, but this.
but like,
But it was something that I understood. Like, when you don't grow up expressing yourself, like I'm from New Jersey, you're gonna get the full expression of a person. So, but that's honest and it's real. And like, that's the way we court in the East. Like, get this girl to come hella high water. Like I used to say, either you hate me or you love me as a female because I'm gonna get it out of you. I need to know what you really feel, not some BS version of what somebody told you last week. And if you don't have a feeling on it, then you need to contemplate it. I've always been that way.
That's interesting because that's something I do purposefully now as a spiritual practice. But at the time I didn't. I had decided my emotions were overwhelming and useless. That's was my stance on my emotions.
And they were repressed.
And repressed. So along with that was with how my voice got so out of whack, or I couldn't find words. But so that was exactly what I needed, right? And that's what you'll usually find is your partner, like it or not, is what you need until you either know that you're ready for something more or something different, or you grow into the next stage of your child
evolution
of your relationship dynamic.
When we were in year 4 or 5, that's kind of what that was. A 5-year-old. We were 5 years old, dealing with each other in the way that a 5-year-old kind of handles things. Very emotional, very unsure, and by year 10, we were making better decisions as to what we were pouring in and not pouring in, and we were making really huge decisions about where we are in life. Especially like year 10 was like a turning point for a lot. It's when where we are spiritually really started to take hold. That's right around the time we went to Shasta. Like everything, just all of that jumble of information now had a direction. Yeah. And so it was like, and it didn't matter what we were looking at, sleeping on a couch. Like we went through some, you don't take your woman through type stuff. So, but that's what I had to find out when we got married. Was she the type of person that could go through those things, didn't complain one time, and see the rainbow at the now? We still on path. Rainbow is in view, but we don't have, because we're at this, because that kid is maturing, we don't face the same issues we faced in the past. That mature 16-and-a-half-year-old really knows how to handle business. He's pretty decent.
Yeah. At this point, we're number one. We know. Yeah. We know the kid, right? But it's not like that teenager like became a different child when they went into like it.
Because it was so expressive.
Personality.
See, that's what I don't understand. People who repress things in the beginning of a relationship, you're building a tumor in your relationship.
Because you're gonna have to go find that.
You have to do it, man. And I would rather do it year 1 than year 10.
Your partner over 10 decibels, then y'all need to talk about something.
Yeah.
Something isn't being talked about.
Some shit.
I mean, unless y'all are just two Capricorns sitting in a tree. And I'm kidding. No, even y'all Capricorns are, I mean, he has a lot of Capricorn energy. That's actually worse because when they do decide to say something, it's like an
that's why I don't wait
for the world.
That's why I don't wait. I do not repress. I'm a middle child.
He doesn't, like, he's probably already learned that lesson. He's also an Aries rising, so he doesn't realize like how he doesn't have to be emotional to feel emotionally impactful. Like, so in other words, when he's emotional, whether he's talking or not, I'm feeling it, right? And I'm not the only one. You can ask anybody that's ever had to be in the same room as him. You feel Darrell before you speak to him. And so when Darrell's upset, it is a very real feeling. And as an empath, especially when I was younger, right? So when we were starting out, I didn't always know the difference between him being upset and me being upset. I didn't realize that I was sometimes picking up on his anger. And because he was trying to stay calm, I became the kind of voice of the anger. Um, and he was trying to control himself so that he wasn't inappropriate because he was more mature than I was. And so it was kind of this thing where I had to, that's one of the first things that I learned as an empath, was to be able to tell the difference between his emotions and my emotions, because I realized that's part of what was confusing me as to what I wanted to say. And then at that time I had been in the practice of basically telling people what they want to hear, which he heard as manipulation.
Oh, it is manipulation. It's not real.
I'm a Cancer, so it's just my way of being.
It's not
I don't consider it not real, because what I understand is that I may feel a certain way, but how I feel may not be the result of what I want out of a conversation. And so a lot of times my goal is not to speak to my feelings more than it is to speak to how I want this to go.
Yeah.
And so people call, I mean, that's another way. I mean, it's still manipulation, but it's just it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's a creative thing. It's how do you want this to go? What do you vision the end of this conversation going, determines how you're going to speak about it. Right. And so that's just the way I am, as part of what I do well. And Darrell didn't always appreciate it.
Yeah, because you think I'm trying to win an argument. And it's not about winning an argument. I've never had a conversation
It's not a Capricorn in this chart.
Winning an argument. It's not about winning an argument. It's really about understanding that, you know what? Maybe the position I'm taking on this isn't conducive to success. It ain't about winning the argument, and I honestly get into these conversations. There is no, okay, what do I need to think about on this next point? I'm not thinking at all. This is like free flow understanding that I'm giving you, and you got questions. Yeah, you keep your preguntas to yourself. That's not how we're going to get down. I'm telling you what's going to happen. I see it. It's already happened. We just have to take the path to avoid the rubble.
Well, and obviously that's something that you, again, it's kind of natural development of relationship. You trust things that you may not have trust in the beginning of a relationship, because you're getting to know that person. Now I know Darrell is extremely intuitive. Like, again, we didn't have words for that when we were first together.
Correct. I just knew.
She just knew, and I was just like, how do you just know? I'm like this thinker,
Yeah, if it ain't in the playbook, how could it happen?
Right.
Like she's like totally like the playbook.
Like a thing.
Yeah, they didn't write that down in the book. That doesn't work.
And I'm like, they didn't say you could do that. Like I was such a bad person.
Yeah. If the path wasn't already cut out, she's like, you can't go that way. You know you can't go that way. If there wasn't like a path, she'd be like, no, you can't go that way. Oh no, we got the machete. Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to go that way. All right, let's find out. So I'm the guy with the machete. Yeah. I'm coming that way.
It's the truth. It is the truth. But yeah, like that's what we have to talk about next time. We have to talk about like arguing.
And those are our arguments. Arguments on she considers herself logical, so we'll get to that.
We will get to that.
Let's get to that next.
We'll get to that.
Logical women next on the Darrell and Monifa show. Love y'all. Thanks for showing up.
Have a good one. Ta-ta.